Hello, everybody from all around the world. I'm Daina, and I'm from Arequipa, Peru. And well, we're having some issues here with power cuts in certain parts of the city, but fortunately, Esther is here to help me, and I was able to get in through my cell phone. Okay. Please remember throughout the session to keep your microphones on mute to avoid any distractions on the background as this is being recorded. And also keep in mind that those that want to be let in will be recorded as well. Okay? Also on the top right corner, you have the Q&A for questions, which you may have along the way, or you can also use the chat, of course. So now let me introduce you to Mary Scholl and Kiara Pineda from Costa Rica. And they will be presenting the topic. It is called Silence, an Untapped Superpower and its multiple roles in learning. So the microphone is all yours.
Thank you, Daina.
Sorry, Kiara, I had to cough. I'm going to mute. I have a cold, everybody, so I'll probably mute myself when I need to cough. I'll try to remember to do that. But yeah, thank you so much, Daina and Esther. Thanks for helping us out. Yvonne, welcome to our screen. Nice to have you with us.
Hello.
Yeah. So I'm Mary, and I'm from the United States and Costa Rica, but right now I'm in Uzbekistan. Kiara?
I'm so thankful to be here. Hi, Ivan, and hello to the rest that are seeing us. I'm from Honduras, and currently I'm in California.
Oh, great. Thanks. So Kiara and I are super excited to be with you here to talk about silence. We want to do a few welcoming arrival activities. If you were in the keynote with me, we did this in the keynote, but we'd like to do it again now. And Yvonne, if you'd like to join us in the welcoming, that would be really fun. What if we each say two or three lines, whatever you want? I could start, and then we'll go to Kiara and then Yvonne, and we'll just go in a circle. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, facilitators and organizers.
Welcome, educators and learners. Welcome, everyone who's tired.
Welcome everyone who has energy. Welcome everyone who loves silence.
Welcome, everyone who doesn't understand silence. Welcome, everyone who's angry.
Welcome, everyone who's happy. And welcome, everyone who feels lonely.
And welcome everyone who feels a sense of belonging. And welcome everyone who is eager to learn.
Welcome everyone who already knows. Welcome everyone who's tired of being on devices.
Welcome everyone who's grateful to be connected through a device. Welcome everyone who feels peaceful.
And welcome everyone frustrated or annoyed. Welcome everyone.
Everyone. Welcome everyone.
Welcome everyone. We're happy to have you here with us. The other arrival activity we like to do is a land, languages, and peoples acknowledgement. Kiara, do you want to start?
Okay. I don't know if people here, we had people that don't know why we're doing this.
Yeah, so that's a great thing to mention. So this is a way to connect with the people and the land and the languages that have come before us, that we are standing on their shoulders. We're here because they were here before us. So it's a way to acknowledge them and connect with them. So we're just going to read it and see how it feels to you. Yeah.
Land, language, and people's acknowledgement. The people of the Institute of Collaborative Learning in Costa Rica acknowledge with gratitude that we live, work, learn, and play on the traditional territory of the Huetar, Bostos, and Rama peoples. We recognize our elders, teachers, mentors, and leaders that have helped us to be here today and whose shoulders we stand.
We acknowledge as well that our colleagues in Peru live, work, learn, and play on the traditional lands of the Inca, Achuar, Aguaruna, Ashaninka, Shipibo, Wambusa, Quechua, and Aymara. And that people attending this conference from all over the world also thrive on land with history that we honor.
We endeavor to live, work, learn, and play with respect, humility, and compassion. We recognize and cherish all languages of the world, including all the languages spoken in the communities and classrooms of the participants, organizers, and facilitators.
Finally, we acknowledge the future generations that will live and care for this earth and for the people that will live here. We strive to give them and their children a safe, abundant, healthy environment filled with love. So thank you for that. We would like to invite everybody to go to a quick Mentimeter survey. We're going to be talking today about silence, and we're really curious about your experience of silence and what you think about it. So we want to start out with you. So the Mentimeter, you can go to menti.com, and the code is 51538629. Or you could also, I think you could go to this QR code on your phone. It should work. And actually, I should have tested it earlier, but I'm going to test it right now. Yeah, it worked on my phone. Oh, that's amazing. So, I think we're also putting a link in the, if you all could put a link in the chat, which maybe you've done, I haven't seen it. Yeah, thanks, Esther. Oh, thanks, Carlins. Great. Hello, Maria del Pilar. Hello, Matilde. All right, so I'm going to shift over here to a different screen so that we are tabbed so that we can all see. Wait a second. That's number one. Number two. There we go. There we go. So now we can actually all see the answers that come up when people go to the Mentimeter. What comes to your mind when you hear the word silence? Uncomfortable. Close your mouth. Peace. Break. Aware. No noise. Be quiet.
Awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Inconvenient.
Yeah, interesting, huh? Oh, I might not have logged in. Let's see. Sometimes I or my students might be silent because, and you know what, I might need to log in. I'm not sure. Hold on, sorry. I restarted my computer and I forgot to restart this. Let's see. Let's see if that's better. All right. I don't see any answers. Maybe we don't have any answers here yet. Out of curiosity, if anybody has put an answer in, it'd be nice to know. Just maybe it's not working. Good morning, Silvana. You can also answer these questions in the chat, of course. Always.
Could you help me, Esther or Ivan, please? I'm not able to get out of my screen since I'm on my cell phone.
Julian, you have our quote. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We actually have, that's exactly our closing quote for sure. And Rachel gave us a link for the handout as well, which is great. So I or my students might be silent when they don't understand the topic or task, when they're bored and they need time, they're tired and not motivated. Yeah, absolutely. They're not engaged with the class. Mm-hmm. And the last question we have for you is, at the beginning of this session, we'd like you to rate your own experiences right now. How comfortable are you with your student silence? How comfortable are you with your own silence? 0 would be strongly disagree, I'm not comfortable, and I think it's 5 would be strongly agree that you were very comfortable. For those that are joining, you can find the link to this survey in the chat. It would be great to have you join us and answer the survey. We'd love to know about your experiences and your thoughts around as we get started. Didn't have an audience pace. Sorry about that. I have just changed the pace. Now you can do it on your own. So if you're just showing up, you can do it from the beginning. Hey, Laura, thank you. Sometimes as a teacher, you're more silent to make space for your students. Yeah, I'm a big silent white person too. Yeah. So in the answers here, we can see that there's varying degrees of comfort for all of these different concepts. It seems like the lowest down here, the numbers that we have, are people not having tools to work with their students' silence in class and knowing how to guide ourselves to have productive silence, which is gonna work on. Yeah, nice, thank you. If anybody would like to go back and fill that out during it, I just changed the permission so you can go through it by yourself. Before I had it as I had too much control on there, so it's free now. All right, I'll go back to our presentation slides. So, thank you for that. Great to learn about you. So let's check in quickly, Kiara. Why do we want to talk about silence? Why did you want to, when Kiara and I were talking about what we'd like to share, Kiara was like, I think I want to talk about silence. And just to let you all know, this session is the rest of the session is now sort of a conversation, mostly between Kiara and myself, although we'll also hope that some of you all join in too in some ways. So what do you think, Kiara?
Yeah, so we were curious about silence because as learners and as teachers, we had those experiences with silence, and sometimes we notice that we feel comfortable with silence, and sometimes we're struggling, like we want to get out of that spot, or we want our students to talk and not be quiet. So that was the curiosity. We wanted to explore silence and see how silence can be useful, right? We're saying not all silence is good, but all silence is useful. So that was our motivation for this morning.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks so much. And our goal for the session is to just raise awareness, share stories, and ask questions. That's really what we're going to look at. So we thought about silence that might hinder learning. There's some silences that really make it hard to learn. So when a student or a teacher is in avoidance or fearful silence or self-protective silence or punitive silence or externally imposed silence, we're going to go through each of these. Probably some of them we'll spend a little bit more time talking about, and some of them we'll sort of share some information and move on. And you can, all of our slides are in the handout, so you can see the thoughts that we're going to share there. You're welcome to just be with us now, and if you have any comments or something, please feel free to put it in the chat or in the Q&A. So we're going to look at silences that might hinder learning, and then we're also going to look at some silences that are productive and help learning. And that comes from understanding the cultures of silence that might value silence, personal thinking time, inner power. Sometimes I'm silenced when I'm focused and I'm in flow. Mindful silence, relaxed silence, and curiosity silence. So hopefully we'll have a chance to talk about most of these, but this is what we came up with in our conversations about silence. So the first one, we're going to start looking at the ones that we think hinder learning. Even though I know this is natural for an ostrich, just stick their head in the ground. The first kind of silence we were thinking about is avoidance silence. And this is when I'm silent because I'm not ready to speak or interact, and I'm creating space for myself through my silence.
Yeah. So I feel sometimes I'm nervous to start speaking. And at the beginning, I don't want to speak because I feel that I'm submitting to judgment. And I feel like I don't want to speak because I'm not ready. I don't have the tools to speak right now. And that's like when I usually am avoiding. I'm like in this kind of avoidance silence, you know?
Yeah, I'm like looking down, like, don't look at me, don't call on me, please.
Right. Don't move so the teacher don't call on you.
Exactly. Or I energetically say, you don't want to talk to me, you don't want me to participate, don't call on me. Yeah. And I can see this in my students when they do it too, right?
And you know what's interesting? That you can read that with the body language. They usually are like the picture you have. It's like, I'm trying to hide myself. I don't want to be exposed because I know that exposing myself means I also have to speak. So there is this, that's why we think this silence hinders students' learning.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a few, so for each kind of silence, we're going to offer 2 slides, one where we sort of explain how we see it, and the other one is some exploratory questions. So as a teacher, if I see my students and I'm guessing it's avoidance silence, how can I support them if they're really avoiding participation? And is it better for me to push them a little bit, which sometimes I tend to do. I tend to be a little bit of a pushy teacher, or I used to before I studied pro-social skills. Or respect their avoidance. Is there something else? And how do I figure that out?
Yeah. And we're talking about pro-social skills before this talk. And I feel this has connection because you need to create or to teach pro-social skills so your students feel safe to get out of avoidance silence and feel that they can be on the spot and talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we go to the next kind?
Yes.
Look at these cats. So I had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun finding pictures where we thought maybe about human beings, but I thought, no, let's use animals. So we have animals on every slide that we think might represent that particular kind of silence. So this is similar to avoidance, but there's a different emotion attached to it, and it's fearful silence.
Yes. I'm silent because I'm afraid that something bad will happen to me if I speak. I'm afraid of being bullied. I'm afraid of my classmates' judgments, or if they're going to make fun of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in this fearful silence, as a teacher, I might think about what is creating that fear. Where's the fear coming from? That leads them to be silent, and what kind of and again, it's a safety. How can I create safety? So it's similar to the avoidance but it's really thinking about the fear that that student must be feeling, and how can we work with that fear?
And I feel like those teachers who teach teenagers, they may be right now like, aha, I know that. Or I remember this student who feels this kind of silence or experiences this kind of silence. Because I feel teenagers, they usually, they want to connect with their classmates.
Yeah.
And they tend to feel fear of not being accepted. That is important for them, feeling that they belong to the group. So they care more about what they are going to say or the way they're going to say things, because they don't want to make mistakes in front of the class, in front of their friends, or in front of the girl or the boy they like, right? So,
right. Yeah, when I moved to Costa Rica, I started teaching adults from a rural community, and I think they were afraid of speaking. They were afraid of making mistakes. I could tell that. And they were afraid of pronouncing. They were afraid of, they were also afraid of the style of teaching that I was offering, because I'd coming from a world where we were kind of doing the English only. And so when I came to Costa Rica, they weren't comfortable with that. That was scary to them, to go into a class where the teacher was saying, please don't use any Spanish at all.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot about how to change my teaching based on what I understood their fears were. And so I no longer believe in an English only classroom. I like to use English as much as possible, but I think there's really good reasons to use L1 in the classroom. And one of it is to help them feel safe. There are ways to use it intentionally that it won't take over the class, but it will help them feel safe. So.
Yeah, I like that. See how this can also helps the misconception that kids learn quicker than adults.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like what happens is kids, they're not fear of speaking.
Yeah.
So that's why fearful silence hinders learning. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Here's the next kind of silence. It's similar to fearful, but this one is just self-protection. So it might be fear of getting hurt, but it might not just be a fear. It might just be an honest truth about getting hurt. And in this kind of silence, I'm silent because I just need to create safe conditions for myself. The other two kinds of silence, we were thinking maybe they don't even know how to create those safe conditions for themselves. But this one, it's like I do. And I have a little story. I was an exchange student in Norway many years ago. And I'll never forget the day that I mispronounced the word for knife. And the proper way of saying it is knif. But I said knif, and I didn't say the K, because in English we don't always say that K. And one of my classmates, and I was about 17 at the time, one of my classmates just thought that was the funniest thing ever. He thought that was funny. He's like, say it again. She's saying it wrong. And it wasn't that I was afraid. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm just not going to play this game, And I was like a turtle. I just retreated into my shell, and I knew that whenever that particular person was around, that I just was going to be in my shell, so that I could be safe and not be taunted. I didn't want to be the object of his humor. So
you were protecting yourself from his reactions.
Exactly. So in that self-protection silence, again, I might explore, what are my students protecting themselves from? Would it be helpful for me to learn more about it? And how do I create a safe environment? It's a similar question.
Yeah. I feel like answering these questions may change all the time. So it is nice to have these questions and use them as a tool to reflect when we see the one student is silent.
Yeah, exactly. Should we move forward?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oh my gosh, this is a scary looking one. Punitive silence. I'm silent because I want to punish you, hurt you, or control you. I don't think you deserve to hear me speak, so I'm giving you the silent treatment.
Mhm. Mary, notice how this one and the other one, self-protection, they're similar, but at the same time, like there are two possible reactions to that situation. For you, it was self-protection,
Yeah.
but other person could feel like they need to react, right?
Mhm.
It's like, okay, I am going to not talk to you because I want to hurt you. It's not that I don't care. It's not that I just don't want to play the game, but it's like I want to hurt you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like canceling the person. Like this that happens now, even with WhatsApp and all those
Mhm.
social media, that you can mute someone or you can just block someone and you're canceling that person.
Yeah. 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 And, it's in the intention in this punitive silence is really hard. Right? It really hurts because that person really, and when I look through the eyes of empathy, I think this wolf has some unmet needs that they don't know how to get met without hurting you.
Yes.
Right? It's
Yeah.
unskillful.
I
Right.
know the story of a friend that she was really hurt. She had this group of teenagers and she was teaching in class. They all decided not to talk. They were silent, the whole class silent. And she had like all the materials, slides, games, and everything. And they didn't speak.
Did she know why?
Um, I think that she mentioned that then she was curious about it. So she tried
Mhm.
to like ask why. She thinks maybe it was because they didn't want to, they didn't like all the work. And instead of just expressing, like, oh, we're not comfortable with all this work, we're just going to punish you. It was like their reaction. They
Yeah.
didn't like something, and that was their reaction, just to punish the teacher.
That's making me think about an experience I had I was a teacher in Japan for many years, for 8 years. And I had one class that I called them my rocks because they wouldn't talk. Like the whole class, I would go into the classroom and whatever positive energy I'm coming in, they were like silence and they would just look down. And I don't think it was punitive silence. I couldn't, there's no way I could really know because it's the only class in my life that I gave up on. I just stopped. I tried for about 5, it was 10 sessions, like 10 weeks in a row, once a week. And after about 5 sessions, I just didn't have the energy to, and I also didn't have the skills to figure it out. This was many, many years ago. But it's funny because when you mentioned your friend, I was sort of reminded of that story. And I don't think it was punitive silence. I think it was probably the turtle, self-protection or avoidance. But as a group, I could not get anybody in that group to speak. And it was really hard. It was really, really hard. I cried a lot trying to figure it out. And then I was like, okay, I can't do this. And then I felt like I was a horrible teacher. But I had 9 other groups that were functioning. So that helped me a little bit. And these particular students were engineering students. And so it just wasn't, I don't know, it didn't seem like it was interesting to them. But punitive silence, that really hurts. I feel for your friend. If I were facing what could be punitive silence, I might, I have to fix this question. These are some questions I might use to explore it. One is, have you ever received what you interpreted as a punitive silence by your students, and how did that feel? I'm sorry for the typos. Have you ever given anyone the silent treatment? What was the impact? How was that? And then how might understanding our own experience help us understand students and their experiences? Because punitive silence, like in your friend's case, and in my case too, it seems to affect more than just the 2 people involved or just the people involved.
Yeah. It's interesting how silent can be that violent, right? You can hurt someone just without words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the more we talk about this, the more that pro-social skills make sense.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like since we are social beings, we need to connect with people, and not feeling part of a group can be a sad experience, hurtful.
Yeah. And I might lash out. I might want to hurt other people because I'm hurt. Right.
Yes.
Well, shall we move forward to, oh wait, we have one more. One more negative one. Impose. Actually, I think we have two negative ones. Imposed silence. This poor dog has a muzzle on him.
I'm silent because someone or something outside of me has said that I have to be silent. It might be a value, like good girls aren't loud, or a quiet classroom is a good classroom, or a rule, students can only speak when spoken to.
Yeah.
You know,
I see a lot.
I have a story about this. I have a nephew. He's 5, and this is his first year of school. He's taking online classes because of the pandemic, and he was so excited to be able to connect with someone, with the teacher in this case, or the 3 other classmates that he has. In the first 2 months of classes, he wanted to share everything that happened during the day. Like, he wanted to tell the teacher what he ate, what he did, the people that he saw, about his friends, everything. So what the teacher did was to mute my nephew. Easy, right? Because now that we are on Zoom, you can just mute someone. You touch one button and done. He didn't know that he was muted, so he kept talking. But the teacher never responded because she couldn't hear what he was saying. And when he noticed that, then he just stopped feeling motivated to take the classes. He refused to take classes or to participate. Of course, my mom forced him to take the classes. So what he did was to get distracted on a different thing. We had to talk to the teacher about the problem, and then she started asking him questions in class. But his response was like, okay, now you want me to do something, I'm not going to do it. So I'm thinking he might feel hurt because he was imposed silence. And when things are being imposed, you don't enjoy it. You don't like it. We don't like to be imposed. So I feel bad that he had that experience, and that may be the situation of many students, because we all are having like hard times being behind a screen, not having like contact with other people, or we don't know what other people are struggling in their own spaces. So I feel like many other students may be feeling that experience of just being muted.
Yeah. And I think one of the feelings that comes up with that is shame. And I've seen that some teachers try to control classes by imposing silence in certain ways that does evoke shame. And I think your nephew's story is a great example of how, it's like how it was really hard for him to get started again, right?
And to trust, because it's so difficult to get the trust of our students, and so fragile to break that trust. So it is important that we keep that in mind. I need to connect with my students. I need my student to trust me. And listening could be a strategy to connect with them.
Yeah, for sure. And these are some of the questions that I might ask myself if around this imposed silence is, what are the short and long-term impacts of imposed silence? Do I impose this kind of power over silence? I mean, I might do it not even knowing that I'm doing. The teacher probably didn't know that was going to be the impact for your nephew. She's probably managing so many kids that wanted to talk, right? So, what needs am I getting met by controlling people with silence as a teacher? And then how might I provide more choice to learners so they don't feel like they're being controlled in that way? And that is also sort of a pro-social skill, right? And learning to grow up and get along, and then create space for everybody to contribute in some way.
And you know what? In helping also our students to create an inner voice, and I'm just thinking, how can inner voice be affected by imposed silence?
Mm-hmm.
And it is important to have those space where they can create that inner voice.
Yeah. So working with the inner voice might be one way to help them move through the feeling of being controlled and to give them a sense of agency and power. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to the more positive ones that help learning. We have, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes to go through this part, I think. So, first one, personal thinking time. Look at this monkey, just sitting up there thinking. In this one, I'm silent because I need time to process and make connections with my thoughts, and I'm taking it. So like as a teacher, I would say, either I'm taking it as a learner or a teacher is giving the students time to think. And so they're silent, and that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Right. How feel like, and this is like a personal experience, I believe that if students know something, they should answer or talk about the topic immediately when I ask them to do.
Oh.
And I was having a class that it was all about reflecting about what I do in the class. Mm. And I remember I wrote an essay about it, like, I didn't like my class because this student didn't answer immediately when I asked this question. And then the teacher sent back the paper with the question, what were you evaluating that you wanted the student to answer right in the moment? And I was like, that's right. Was I evaluating the speed? Are they like a machine that they have to just answer? Are they like, Alexa, these like home robots? Are they like
now?
Yeah. That makes me think they need time to organize their ideas. Like the brain works like I create the idea, then I organize the idea, finally I articulate it. And so they need time to go through that process, especially when they're like in class, that they know that they have this idea, they're being evaluated. Yeah. Or it's like something new, a new topic. So they need that time to have personal thinking.
Exactly. So I'm going to ask myself, do my students feel confident enough to tell me they need some thinking time? How can I cultivate this confidence? And how does their inner speech affect their decision to express their voice or not? Right. And also one of the questions one of the things that got me thinking a lot about silence many years ago, which is a little tool that's been a great help. When I was teaching in Japan, there was a professor named Naoko Aoki, and she told me one day that she asks her students, what does their silence mean? So when they're quiet, does it mean you're thinking? Does it mean you don't understand the question? Does it mean you just need space? Does it mean you're avoiding me? So she would ask, what does your silence mean? And by asking that question, it would give the students more confidence to be able to say what their silence meant. And inevitably it was thinking time for me, at least. Although I use that tool a lot now, and it really helps me as a teacher to stay calm too. So, all right, let's just go on to the next one. Look at this cool dog. Kiara and I call this inner power silence. This is where I'm silent because I feel empowered to be silent, and I don't have a need to have to speak. If I want to speak, I'll speak. If I don't want to speak, I won't. Both are fine. And that the student feels that kind of power or sense of agency around their silence and around their speaking. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it helps. I feel like the reason, Mary, that we think that this helps learning is because helps students to cultivate autonomy. I have power in the class.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And so the questions that I might ask myself with this inner power silence is, what does it take to cultivate that inner power? And sometimes there's other ways other than just the verbal speaking expression that represent understanding. So am I accessing those other ways as well? Because I want the student to feel empowered, that they're speaking when they want and need to speak. So that is inner power silence. Anything else you want to add to that one, Kiara?
Just something that comes to my mind when I'm reading this is we all learn different ways. And for some students, speaking helps them to understand the topics, but for other students, they might prefer to write or just to have a moment to reflect, to think.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. All right, this is the next one, this beautiful blue butterfly. And this one, the culture of the butterfly is to be quiet, is to be silent. And so this one is looking at the silence in the students because it's a value that the community celebrates. So you could also look at this as maybe a hindrance to learning, but in this perspective, I think what we were thinking about is that as a teacher, how can I honor the culture of my learners?
Yeah.
And if that culture includes a certain kind of silence, then how can I honor that and weave it into the work that we're doing in the classroom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like a expression of respect. I respect your silence because I know the intention of your silence. I know the intention is not to punish me or to hurt me, or it's not just to hide. Yeah. But your silence shows respect.
Yeah, I experienced that when I was teaching in the United States in an inner city school near my home. I grew up in the suburbs, and I was teaching, this was many years ago, I was teaching in a multicultural classroom. And there was actually some African-American kids that when I was talking, they would look down, they wouldn't look at me, and they were quiet. And that was part of them showing respect. So I, in my white, middle-class, dominant culture paradigm, would have called it disrespectful to not look at me while I'm talking and to not respond. But in their paradigm, it was respectful. And so I really had to learn that. And I was so grateful that when somebody taught me so that I could just accept that and then work with it in ways to see if I could find other ways to help them, other moments for them to participate in other ways. So for me, that was a really big learning.
That's the beauty of being a teacher. Helps you to learn that kind of things that I feel in a different job you wouldn't be able to have that kind of exposition or exposure. Yeah. And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking about that a culture could be not just like the macro culture, but the microculture. And if a student is silent, we are curious to ask, why is that you're silent? What if the family of that student values being silent when the other person is speaking, or, as you said, showing respect through silence? So it is worthy asking, being curious in the classroom, what the silence of this student mean? What does it mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some questions here. What might it be cultural? How can I learn about my students' cultures? What are the functions and meanings of silence in my own or my students' cultures? And how can I honor the culture and also work with students to reach the learning objective? Yeah, so those are some questions that I might ask myself when I encounter cultural silence. All right, next one. We have a few more to go. I think we'll be able to get to them. We might have to pick up the pace a little bit. We have this little raccoon who is focused and in flow. Sometimes I'm silent because I'm so deep in my creative process. I don't want to my conscious thoughts to interrupt my subconscious imagination, right? I'm so focused on what I'm doing. And I know a number of times I've interrupted students, and then I gotten them out of their flow, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, because I can see that it was hard for them to get back into that flow. So that's also sort of that tug between what do I want as a teacher, and am I noticing what's happening inside those students?
Yeah. I think for us, it's hard to know when we are in that kind of focused flow, because since it is an subconscious thing, you're not thinking about it. You're not like, okay, I'm right now being focused. Like I'm doing this and that's how, no, you're not aware of it until you're done. It's like, oh, this is all I did, how productive I was. But as teachers, we should observe more, I would say. Observe the way that our students work, create a space for those students who prefer to be silent when they're working.
Yeah, absolutely. How can I notice this in my students, and how can I support them when they're in this focus flow? Absolutely. The next one, we have this beautiful white owl, and that's representing our mindful silence, where I'm silent because I'm paying attention to my present experience with kindness and curiosity. And I mentioned this a little bit in the keynote. And I didn't get to mute on time. I'm going to mute my coughs and sneezes, but sorry about that. So actually, I'm going to push through the mindful silence, if that's okay, Kiara, because I think it's about mindfulness and being mindful, and me being mindful, but also me cultivating mindfulness in my students. And I talked about that a little bit, and we're running a little short on time. And I want to get to the kangaroo.
Love it.
All right, you guys, the kangaroo silence. I love the kangaroo. It's relaxed silence.
I'm comfortable with my silence. I could speak or be silent. Either way is fine.
Yeah, so it's a little different than the empowered
More power.
dog, right? Where the dog is like, I have the power to do this. This is a different kind of power. It's like it's almost this more subtle, deeper. I'm not trying to exert power or live power. I'm just like comfortable, and I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who's, he used to come over to our house, and he would just sit. He was okay talking, okay not talking. And it was actually, at first it was a little awkward because I felt like we should be talking or something. But then I became very comfortable with the silence. It was a very sweet, comfortable silence. And so I sometimes think about that in class. Like, what if we had a relaxed, comfortable silence here? What would that be like?
Oh, and when I was in Marlborough, I remember we started the class with this kind of silence. It was just like a moment to be present, to enjoy the silence that we were there and within the group.
Yeah. And so the questions we have, how my own comfort and relaxation with silence creates space and acceptance for others to also relax in silence. And how comfortable am I with my students' comfort with their own silence? Yeah, and that comes with practice. I just love this kangaroo. I want to be quiet and silent like that kangaroo.
Yeah. And Mary, there's something that you said once, and I remember. You said, sometimes when we are learning something new, we may feel our mind like a glass of water with a piece of earth. And you see all the ideas are like there, that the earth makes the water looks dirty, and you can see the clear water that was before. So we may need a moment of silence after learning something, feel like just a moment to relax, let the mind cool down.
Yeah.
So all the ideas come to the end of the glass of water.
Yeah, the dirt in the water falls to the bottom and it becomes clear again.
Yes.
Yeah, oh, sweet. That's a nice memory. And our last silence that we think helps learning is just like this alpaca, curiosity silence.
I'm curious about something and I'm silent because I'm paying attention and I'm eager to learn.
This is such a cool energy in the classroom, right? We're like, they're quiet because they want to learn.
Yeah. I feel like some people love doing that. I have some friends, they enjoy just sitting and see people, see what they do, listen to what they say. I feel they learn a lot from other people just by doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And it's for me as a teacher, I want to notice when they're being curious. I want to see that. And then I also want to think about how do I cultivate that energy in the classroom? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that can be a tool
I'm putting
for
a
us
little
as
note in the
teachers
chat.
too.
And there's two things. There's another little closing Mentimeter, if you all who have 28 people here. If some of you could fill that out, that would be really lovely. So we have curiosity, silence, and I'm going to mention just really quickly, we have these tools for working with our students, silence, thinking about their stance, like our vision on how am I viewing silence? Do I view it as a help or a hinder? Do I view it with my own curiosity, and can I be mindful and attentive to it? So those are sort of our three tools for working with our students' silence. And they're in the notes and in the slides. And I don't have a lot of time to go into them because we're getting towards the end of our session. But what I'd love to just put out there, I'm curious about comments or questions you might have about silences that might hinder learning, productive silences that might help learning. What do you think? And if you could fill out the Mentimeter, and also if you have questions or comments, you could write them in the chat. You could also come online and come in and talk with us. We love that too.
Or if you want to stay silent.
So we're curious, what do you think? And
just,
Kiara, anything in closing before we open up for comments that you'd like to add?
I was saying, or if they want to stay silent and just think about the topic, reflect around the questions.
She seems to be flashing.